Here we're looking for the choice that describes the data from the table that supports their conclusion. What's their conclusion? Digital paywalls restrict access to content to those with a paid subscription. In an investigation of the effect of paywalls on revenues, they compared actual outcomes with a paywall to estimates without a paywall. The researchers concluded that introducing a paywall is generally more beneficial for large newspapers, which have high circulation and tend to offer a substantial amount of unique online content. So, we're hearing that having a paywall is more beneficial for large newspapers. So now let's look to see how that's reflected in the data. For this large, and this large, I'm noticing that the revenue change was positive. But I'm also noticing that for the small newspapers, the revenue actually went down. So what we're seeing is that these three newspapers demonstrate that having a paywall is only helpful if you're a large newspaper. So let's look at the answer choices. A says Chicago Tribune, LA Times had similar total changes, but LA Times had a smaller percent change. That's not what we're looking for. B, LA Times had a 12.5 change, while Chicago Tribune had 19%. That might be it because it's talking about the two bigger ones that had the larger newspaper size and the positive revenue change. C, the New York Times had a 20% change, while the Denver Post had a negative 1% change. That also works because we're talking about how the big was better than the small. And D, the Denver Post had a negative 1 change, which was the smallest of the selected companies. Well, that's actually not even true, by the way, because the smallest change was the Sun Sentinel with negative 11.9. So now comparing B and C, the statement that they originally had said is that having a paywall is more beneficial for the larger newspapers. So between B and C, I think we're going to want to pick C because it's saying that for the larger ones it was beneficial. For the smaller ones, it was not beneficial. So it's giving us that comparison, whereas B is just simply giving us two large ones only. So there's no real comparison to do. So let's go ahead and go with C here.